Thank you very much. So now just to move on, and I'll tell you a little bit now about the Consumer Advisory Panel. So true to the research world where acronyms are part of the language, the Consumer Advisory Panel is called the CAP. We're a diverse group of about 10 engaged and active volunteers, and we come from a variety of cancer experiences and life experiences. But the main thing is that we're really dedicated to promoting the importance of clinical trials research and making a difference. The CAP are equal members in the ANZUP teams, and the team, as you've already heard, is made up of researchers and clinicians. And our primary role is to bring that lived experience perspective to all the research that comes along. So CAP members help bridge the gap between the clinicians and the wider community, because we understand the realities of treatment and the psychosocial issues, and we can help to communicate this to the community. We come from all over Australia and New Zealand, and at the moment we don't have a New Zealand member, but we're going to fill that spot again soon. Sadly, he had to step down, but we come from all across both countries. We try to make sure that at least one CAP member sits on each of the cancers that ANZUP is researching and represents, so each of the committees. So there's a couple of people sit on the prostate cancer working parties and the bladder cancer, etc., etc. And some of us come from other cancer experiences too. So what this does is make sure that there's diverse knowledge and diverse experience and a broad understanding about what the cancer experience is. CAP members bring a unique perspective of the health experience and a wealth of diversity and knowledge and capabilities. And above all, we bring that motivation of improving outcomes. And that's because really the common denominator is all of us on that Consumer Advisory Panel have had our own cancer experiences. And that comes about because so very often, if those of you who are in the audience have going through treatment, sometimes you think, well, maybe there's something else I can do, and I'm through this, I've had so much experience, and people often express that to their clinician, and very often that's where people come from to be a part of our Consumer Advisory Panel. It's worked well for us because we've got people who are really engaged and enthusiastic because they've seen the benefits of what clinical trials research has done for them and for us. And some of us, even though we might not have been on a clinical trial, still understand how important it is to our outcomes. We work really hard to represent the community of people affected by below-the-belt cancers and think about things like, what is this trial trying to achieve? Is it really going to be what people want? As consumer advisors, we're not expected to have scientific understanding specifically about the merits of the trial, but rather we're experts in our field because we've been personally affected by cancer. And through an experience that we didn't expect and definitely did not want, we've had the opportunity to bring meaning to that experience through our commitment to the development of ANZUP clinical trials. Being a member of CAP places members in a very unique position, one that we consider of great privilege as representatives of the cancer community. And we're engaged with the process from the very beginning, and Professor Davis has told us a little bit about that, from the concept stages right through to where we're sitting on committees that oversee the trials and the governance. We sit on there's also translational research committee working parties and quality of life working parties, so we have input into every aspect of the trials process. As I said, at least one of those members, one of our members sits on each of the committees, and we have a consumer member as representing the board and on the scientific advisory committee. And so, again, saying that throughout the whole process, that lived experience perspective is always there as a reminder to people as we're developing these programs. The CAP meets about 3 to 4 times a year. One of them is at this ASM, and we haven't been able to do that for 3 years, so it's really great to be here. But a lot of times we've just had to meet via Zoom, which everybody is so used to Zoom these days, aren't they? And this provides a great opportunity for networking and mentoring and being able to, report back to the researchers just what we've discussed around the trials that are being planned. One of our key roles is to review the information that trial participants and their families are asked to consider when they're going on to a clinical trial. And one of the main ones is the patient information and consent forms. And these documents provide information, for example, about the trial, that what the participant on the trial is going to have to undergo, what the researchers are trying to achieve, what the pros and cons of the drug treatments might be, all the information that you would need to make an informed decision. So what we can do as people who have been affected by cancer is we read that as though we might be thinking about going on the trial ourselves. And so we can ensure that it's understandable in that lay language, that it's not in a clinical language that's often like apples and oranges to us. And that when we make a decision, it's an informed decision. We work together as a group reviewing the documents, and sometimes when we're going through the process, we have the researcher there with us discussing the trial as we go along. The documents we review are very often not in our personal and professional understanding. Not many of us come from that place. We've come from a whole range of different experiences, and they're very lengthy, but they have to sometimes be that lengthy to meet the standards and that ethical standards and disclosures. And it's a big learning process for us, but it's really, really interesting, and it's such a privilege to be able to be part of it and to be part of being at these meetings and learning about it. We've had many successes over the time. If you've ever seen any of these documents yourself, you might see that sometimes there'll be a diagram in there, that they're the sorts of things that we might express are really important, because if you don't understand the terminology and understand what the clinical terms are, then often looking at a diagram helps you understand what it's all about. CAP members engage in ANZUP in a variety of ways, not just in the ways that I've told you about. Another really exciting way that we have input is around below the belt grant applications, and we review those grant applications along with the clinicians, and those recipients are announced later on in the conference. It's important again because we're looking at what research is funded, what the community want to hear about. This morning we were part of an education session where we brainstormed some of new initiatives of Cancer Australia. So again, having input into what's going on in the cancer world generally in Australia. It's not straightforward, and all of these issues have been talked about a lot of times about how to engage with the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander community, or to those communities who don't have English as a first language. So hopefully we'll see some great outcomes from that. It's very rewarding to see our input being taken on board. Another example I can give you is just some pamphlets that you might have been also seen. If you're on a particular drug treatment, you'll be given some information about it, and one particular one we were asked to give some feedback on, and all that was taken on board, even down to the very minute little details of how the flyer was set out, because it's easier to read. We sometimes provide articles to our Below the Belt community, a magazine that you've all got a copy of today. And while fundraising is not a part of the CAP terms of reference, For many, it's a way to be involved and have some fun, and especially for those who enjoy riding a bike, which I can tell you is not all of us on the team, but certainly a lot take part in that. The CAP is committed to promoting the benefits of clinical trial research to the wider community and to help increase participation rates by helping to break down those myths about being part of a trial and trying to help remove many of the barriers that make it difficult for people to make an informed decision. And one of them that Ian mentioned was that guinea pig mentality. You know, that's something that it's really interesting. People feel like they're being experimented on. So it's great when we can sort of be able to say, you know, we've been part of this and no, that doesn't happen that way. The CAP feel valued for the opportunities we've had to contribute to ANZUP research initiatives and its members who seek our input to help ensure that the trials are always patient-focused. We're passionate about what we do. Very sadly, over the years, some of our CAP members have not survived their cancers, and we never forget them because their memories provide a very potent reminder for each of us to keep doing what we do and to make a difference and to help improve the outcomes for future generations. And that is exactly why we volunteer at ANZUP. So I hope you've got a little bit of a picture of, again, the bigger picture of ANZUP's research initiatives and how that voice the lived experience voice is always part of it. And there's, like I say, about 10 of us, and we have a very integral part in the program.